Hello and welcome to another lesson. Today it is about Mrs. Gren. So that's your title, Mrs. Gren. Keywords: movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. Okay. So today we're going to define the terms living and dead and use Mrs. Gren to decide whether an object is living or dead. Okay. Most of you, if you're using your class notebook, will just have this. However, if you haven't and you do it on a piece of paper, please make sure you get your title, your date, whatever the date is for you, and your keywords, okay? Keywords for scientific literacy are really important. And then what I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a go at the first 4 questions of our Do Know activity. Okay. Number 1, what organelles are found in a plant and an animal cell? So you have your nucleus, you have your cell membrane, cytoplasm, and your mitochondria. They're the big ones that are found in both the plant and an animal. In just an animal then, you've got your vacuole, cell wall, and chloroplast. Okay, what is the function of the nucleus? It contains the DNA, which means that it contains all the information of the cell. What is the function of the mitochondria? It's the place where respiration takes place. So it's where we make energy. Okay, so like I said, we're going to look at the terms living and dead today and how we use Mrs. Gren to decide whether an object is living or dead. Okay, so what do we need to keep ourselves alive? Okay, we need to be able to eat, get a form of nutrition, move, reproduce, excrete our waste, grow. We need to be sensitive to light, to other objects. Okay, so these are the kind of things that we need to do to be able to keep us alive. And if you think about a computer, there are a couple of things here that mean that a computer is dead or isn't living because it doesn't have the ability to move, doesn't have the ability to reproduce, doesn't have the ability to grow. Okay, so just a couple of things. Obviously, it doesn't also have the ability, but that's how we define things based on whether they're living or dead, is what they have the ability to do. So on the one side here, Mrs. Gren knows the life processes. Okay, so that's how we remember what the life processes are. We say Mrs. Gren. So M stands for movement, R stands for respiration, S stands for sensitivity, G stands for growth, R stands for reproduction, E stands for excretion, and then N stands for nutrition. Okay, on this side then, all the definitions of each part of Mrs. Gren, so how we define whether we're living or dead, is all mixed up. Okay, so movement doesn't mean getting rid of waste. Okay, what I'd like you to do, you can either copy out the table, or if you're using your class notebook, it'll be there ready. These words will be there ready. Put the correct definitions to these words in the right place. Start with the ones you definitely know. Okay, so getting rid of waste, that's excretion. Okay, so start with the ones you definitely know, and then we'll move on to the ones that you don't know. You most probably know most of them, so you'll be able to move on. Again, pause the video, copy out the table and put it in the right place. Okay, so we're back with the answers. Okay. So movement, all living things can move, even plants, okay? Respiration means getting energy from our food. So plants and animals both do that, but in different ways. Sensitivity, that means we detect changes in the surroundings. Growth, all living things can grow. Reproduction, making more living things of the same type, okay? Excretion, getting rid of our waste, and then nutrition, taking and using food. So these are the things that make us living. Being able to do these 7 things means we are living, and we remember it is Mrs. Gren. Okay, so each of them has got a definition. So check your answers, give yourself a mark out of 7 if you got them all right. Okay, so right, Mrs. Gren, right, how? Okay, So let's have a look at, just to do an example. This is Gren, and we have got a bear. Okay, so a bear, we think a bear is living. Okay, they live, depending on what type of bear, depends where they live. Okay, so say I pick a bear, he lives in Canada, in the outback. Okay, so we want to think about how we know that a bear is alive. So what does M stand for? It stands for movement. And can a bear move? Yep, we've seen a bear walk, we've seen a bear run, we've seen a bear swim. Just a couple of examples. So we know a bear can move. Okay, next one then, reproduce. Okay, bears can make their own young, and we call them cubs. So we've seen that bears make living offspring. Okay, sensitivity. Okay, so bears are sensitive to light. They can sense, like, if they're in danger. Okay, they can sense the weather. That's, again, a change in their surroundings. So we know that a bear is alive because it can do all them things. Grow. So do bears stay the same size forever? No. So they have the ability to grow. They grow from a cub to like a full-size bear. Also, if he eats too much, he'll put on weight. Okay, especially with humans, we're able to see. Excretion, yeah, so not to go into too much detail, we all know that bears can get rid of their own waste. Respire, so we know that bears eat and they make energy. Any animal does that. Okay, remember, even humans are an animal. Okay, and then nutrition, so you know that bears eat. Think about Winnie the Pooh, he eats honey. Okay, so we know that bears eat and they take in their own nutrition to make their own energy. Okay, so them two link together quite nicely. Okay, so that's just an example. I just picked bear randomly off my head. So on the next page then, you've got this, either you're copying it out or you've got it in your class notebook. You've got to give examples now of how each of these animals or plants, okay, so plants are also living, carries out each of these things. Okay, this one I'll help you out, because realistically everything, when they respire, they just use food. So they're just using food to make energy. Okay, so plants do it when they make their food via photosynthesis, but they still make glucose. Okay, so if we wanted to be really scientific, we'd say glucose to make energy, plants photosynthesize to make the glucose, humans eat it. Okay, so put photosynthesis there. So that one's nice and easy. Okay, okay, so have a go, and I'll come back in a minute and fill it out with you. So remember to pause, and then I'll come back with the answers. Okay, so hopefully you've had a little bit of a go of this and tried to work out, just giving examples. Okay, so it says explain how each of these species carry out the living processes, mention organs. Okay, most of them I haven't mentioned organs, but I think that you guys will have done quite well. So lion has muscles in its legs to help it find food. I've put with greenhouse plants and Venus flytraps, they move and grow towards the light. They also, and there's another thing you could have written about, they also have roots that grow downwards towards the soil to collect nutrients. Okay, snake will move. So I then did snake, polar bear and fish, because they're all similar in the way that they'll move towards food. They'll move away from predators. They'll move to find habitats. Okay, we already went through respiration. So quite a lot of these are quite similar. So lion will have sensitivity to sound. It'll notice sounds if the temperature gets too cold or too hot. Plants are sensitive to light. They'll often grow towards the light because they need it for photosynthesis to make glucose. Okay, snakes, very sensitive to temperatures. They live in a controlled temperature. Polar bears, again, sensitive to temperature. Fish, then, they're very sensitive to sound, different frequencies. That's how they know prey and predators. Quite sensitive to light as well. Growth, they all grow. Okay, all grow from different sizes. Reproduction, then, lions and polar bears will produce live young. Snakes and fish will release eggs, hundreds of eggs, and then they will eventually, that's how they reproduce. And then Venus flytraps and greenhouse plants, they either produce seeds or you can take cuttings of them to grow and reproduce, okay? All of them release waste, okay? Lions and polar bears must have the most complex reproductive systems, and that's where you could use an organ like bladder, okay? So stuff like ears and stuff would have been organs to help you out. So most of them release like waste product and urea in that form, okay, because snakes and fish still do that. But then greenhouse plants and other plants, they release their waste as CO2, carbon dioxide. Then I went on to nutrition. So that's looking at, so they're carnivores, they eat meat, takes in nutrition from their roots. Venus flytrap get their nutrition from eating flies. And then these ones are omnivores, so they eat both meat and plants, okay? Now, if I'd have put a computer down here, just a little bit of a think about it, computers cannot move, so no, they don't respire. They're not really sensitive to light. They don't care if it's light or dark. They can't grow. They can't reproduce, they don't produce waste, and they don't eat to get nutrition, okay? So that's how we know that a computer is not alive, whereas all these other species are alive. So that's how we kind of work it out. So if you're ever thinking, is that living or is that not living? That's just a helpful hint. Okay, so the other thing we're going to look at today then is how we make organs, okay? You need to know these definitions, so I'd note them down. First one, cell, the basic building blocks of life. And in a previous lesson, if you haven't watched it yet, we went through how to label and what's inside a plant and an animal cell, because they're slightly different. Then tissues. So tissues are a group of cells of the same type working together. So that's the definition of a tissue. Loads of cells of the same type working together, and you can see they all look similar. And then it's given some examples of tissues. So tissues from plant and animal cells can form tissue such as a muscle tissue. Living tissue is made from a group of cells working together with similar structure and function to do a particular job. So here are some examples: muscle tissue, the lining of your intestine, lining of your lungs, phloem. So they're the tubes that carry dissolved sugar around the plant. And then root hair cells, plants take away water and minerals from the soil. So just some examples of tissue for you there, but just make sure you get the key definition down. Ooh. An organ then is a group of tissues that work together to perform a function. And there's some examples of main organs in your body. So they're groups of tissues that all work together to form a particular job. Got your heart, lungs, stomach, brain, leaf, and roots. And then organ systems. An organ system is a group of different organs which all work together to complete a particular job, okay? So you've got your circulatory system, your respiratory system, so that's your lungs, circulatory system, your heart, and all the organs that go with that. Digestive system is most probably our biggest organ system. You've got your stomach, large intestine, small intestine, okay? And you can kind of see it all going on here. Reproductive systems, your ovaries, or testes, and then a leaf canopy, that's the organ within the leaf, which is, organ system within leaf, which is different parts of a leaf working together, okay? So you should be able to now define them keywords. If you have missed something, go back and just watch the definitions. Make sure that you get the key definitions. Don't make loads of definitions, so pause and I'll give you the answers in a minute. But you should be able to give the definitions of these. Okay. So cell, building blocks of life, tissue, similar cells, grouped / working together. Organ, similar tissues, grouped carrying out a particular function. And then organ system is a group of organs. Okay, so On the next two slides now, depending on where you are, they are in your class notebooks. You could kind of go and read them, okay? There's information. You need to read through it and then pick out the answers to the questions. So I'll go through the first one. So it's loads of information about the nervous system. I'm not going to read it to you. It says, and then down here, put the keywords from the passage which are underlined into the correct order in the diagram. You may not need to use all the underlined words. This will help you describe the organisation of, and this is the nervous system, not the circulatory system. Okay, so information all about the nervous system. Pause the screen and have a read. And then can you identify an organelle, so a part of a cell, a tissue, an organ, and an organ system? So reading that information, can you identify them? Okay, so it says neurons are the main type of cell. So the type of cell is a neuron. So I put that there. They contain organelles like nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane. So I'll just put no organelle, I'll just put nucleus. Tissue. So it then says the tissues are called nerves. Organ then. Main organs, the brain or the spinal cord. So I'll put brain. And then that makes the nervous system. Okay, so you're just reading information and putting it all in order. I'm either expecting to see that flow diagram in your books or filling it in your class notebook. Next one then, same kind of thing. Pause the screen, read through it and try and fill in the bottom. Okay, so let's have a look. The heart is the main organ. So I'll just work through it. Heart. It's the main organ made from muscle tissue. So it's going a little bit backwards here, but as you read through, you should be able to fill it in. Millions of muscle cells. And they're made from all them nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane. So I'll pick cytoplasm this time. Wrong way around there. Plasm, L before A. And then the system is the circulatory system. Okay. Finally then, true or false, pause the screen. So you can either go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or if you're in your class notebook, they should already be there. Remember, just T for true, F for false, and try and connect the mistakes. Correct the mistakes. Okay, so the first question is a little ambiguous because there is kind of true and false. So tissues are made from one type of cell. They're similar types. So you could have a couple, but normally they are just the one type of cell, but they can be similar types of cells. Lots of organ systems work together to make an organism. That's true because we're an organism. An organelle is bigger than an organ. That's false. An organelle is the smallest part. It's even smaller than a cell. It's what's within a cell. The circulatory system carries electrical messages around the body. That is false. That is the nervous system. The spinal cord and the brain are organs in the nervous system. That is true. Okay. So make sure you submit your work and thank you very much for listening.